Passing the larger of the two car parks, preferring the shelter from the surrounding cops, he drove the car further down the hill, slowing to make the turn. The excited snuffling from behind the cargo net meant Bodie knew they'd arrived. He glanced in the rearview mirror. "That's right, boy. We're nearly there." There were no other cars present. In the summer, there would be several. He wasn't the only local to get out for an early morning walk before the rest of the county came out to go about their daily business. The cold was keeping them home now, he was certain. The larger car park he'd just driven by had a solitary vehicle in it. Not one he recognized, but it was still dark, still early. Switching off the engine triggered the interior lights to burst into life, the signal for his dog to make himself ready to leap from the car. Bodie let out an excited bark. All right, I'm coming." Cracking open the door, let in a blast of freezing air, and the warmth of the heated seat and steering wheel would, no doubt, soon become a distant memory. The protection from the wind offered by the trees, even though not in leaf, was still of benefit. Perhaps the path around the woods would be more pleasant than braving the open ground of the common up to the high point overlooking Grimston Warren Reserve. Zipping up his coat, he waggled a foot beneath the rear bumper and the electrically operated tail lift raised the boot lid. Bodie immediately made to leap from the car, but his owner was ready, as always, grasping the dog's collar firmly and reaching up to clip the lead in place. The dog hustled past and jumped to the ground, nosing the earth and taking in the fresh smells that accompanied a heavy frost. The mud of the car park was churned up by visiting vehicles, but had subsequently frozen. The winters here could be harsh, and none more so in living memory than this one. Several crows cawed to one another from the nearby trees, as the inky darkness of the night sky slowly shifted towards a slate grey as dawn approached. They set off through the gate and on into the woods beyond, Bodie pulling as they went, keen to get moving. Once in the sanctuary of the woods and within the fenced reserve, safely away from the road, he pulled the dog back, making him sit down before releasing the lead. Dogs were supposed to be kept under control, but he often chose to ignore that rule if there was hardly anyone else around. One of the car parks here was well known as a location for some rather salacious nighttime activities that the police didn't seem to bother trying to stamp out. So why shouldn't Bodie be allowed to run free? The dog took off along the path ahead, tail in the air and nose to the ground. He wouldn't go too far. The trees were thinning as he approached the access to the open ground of the common, the bracing freshness of the crisp breeze gathering pace against his cheeks. They felt numb and his head was cold. Only now did he realize he wasn't wearing his woolly hat. Glancing back through the trees towards the car park, he considered nipping back for it, envisaging it on the passenger seat where he'd left it to be warmed by the heated seat. It never worked, but he still tried it most days. Maybe there needed to be weight applied on top. That's a thought. He'd try that tomorrow. "Bodie!" He waited. The dog didn't appear. He whistled. Still there was no reply. Muttering under his breath, he carried on, quickening his pace. Who knew what the dog would be up to if he left him to his own devices and went back to the car? He was irritated to find the gate out of the woods was unlatched. "Bodie! Here, boy!" An excited bark carried to him from a distance. He recognized it. Bodie must be halfway across the common. Hopefully he hadn't come across anyone of a nervous sensibility. Most dog owners, the only people daft enough to be out here at this time in sub-zero temperatures, would be okay with Bodie. But there were others who turned their noses up at a large golden retriever charging across the field towards them, particularly if they had one of those miniature dogs who were often a little skittish in the presence of a larger cousin. Clearing the woods, a gentle hum of early morning traffic from the distant Queen Elizabeth Way broke the silence, and he scanned the gently undulating common for an overexcited hound, seeing him a few 100 meters away, bounding back and forth, barking at something. With no one else in sight, the second car park, skylined off to his right, was now visible, and looked empty from this distance, but, admittedly, his eyes weren't what they used to be.